the Detroit Pistons have had their 3 coaching finalists for the past week and a half or so, but will they be adding a new coach to their finalists, and should they really just scrap their 3 finalists and go after this potential coach that just got fired from the Phoenix Suns? We're going to talk about who that is and why they should go after him in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON. So I just want to let you guys know this before we get into the first topic. The second and third segments will be our Brandon Miller deep dive breakdown. I've been pushing it back because the Pistons keep getting more news and more news and more news and more rumors about their coaching search. So I've pushed it back like 3 days. And then what we're going to talk about in the first segment popped up today. So I was like, okay, so I can either push back the Brandon Miller stuff another day again and inch 1 day closer to the lottery when I'm trying to get other prospects in, or I just put it all into the same episode. So Brandon Miller's not going to get an entire episode. I'm sorry for the Brandon Miller fans out there, but he is going to get the second and third segment. We'll talk about his strengths, his weaknesses, and if he is the right pick for the Detroit Pistons. But in the first segment, we're going to be talking about the Pistons head coaching search. So for a while now, for the past week and a half, 2 weeks or so, we've known that the Pistons, 3 finalists for their head coaching job. Charles Lee, assistant coach with the Milwaukee Bucks. Jarron Collins, assistant coach with the New Orleans Pelicans. And Kevin Ollie, former head coach at UConn and was currently the head coach of development at the OTE League. We've known that they were the 3 guys for a minute, but there is another coach that should be entering the fray, and I think the Pistons should just, I don't want to say throw away the 3 candidates because it sounds disrespectful, but kind of just be like, okay, we kind of have a better candidate. We're going to move on from you guys. Sorry about that, but we're going to go ahead and move this direction. And that is Monty Williams. Monty Williams was fired from the Phoenix Suns, what was it, on the 13th, on the 13th? He was fired from the Phoenix Suns. Their new owner, Matt Ishiba, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He's from Michigan, played for Michigan State basketball apparently. That's pretty cool. But apparently them two, he never really vibed up with Monty after purchasing the team midway through the season. He's kind of overseeing all of the basketball operations now over there in Phoenix. So they decided to move on from Monty. And now he is available on the open market. He should be by far the Pistons' number 1 target. They should be going after him. They should be doing all they can to try to hire him. He's the best candidate for the Pistons on the market, in my opinion. Monty also has connections with Troy Weaver going back a few years. They're both from DMV. They have connections going all the way back there. And he was the assistant coach for Troy Weaver's OKC Thunder back in 2015, 2016. That was the only year he was the assistant coach there. He wasn't fired or anything. He had some tragic stuff going on with his family. I don't really want to get into that. That's none of our business. But just tragic stuff happened with his family, so he took some time away from basketball. So it wasn't like OKC fired him or they left on bad terms or Troy Weaver moved on from him. No, Monty stepped away for his own reasons. So they have connections going back a few years now. We know that if you have connections with Troy Weaver, you're probably in. You're in at least the candidates. You're at least in consideration if you have ties with Troy Weaver. Outside of that, though, Monty Williams is actually a fine NBA head coach. I'm a fan of what he would bring to the Detroit Pistons, and this is what he would bring. A guy who took over Phoenix, a team that was a laughingstock. He took over Phoenix in 1920. Obviously, the whole the bubble, COVID thing happened. We remember what happened in the bubble. First year, they won 34 games. Next year, 51 wins. They go to the NBA Finals. The next year after that, 21-22, 64 wins, most in the NBA, wins Coach of the Year. And then this past season, they only won 45 games, but Devin Booker dealt with some injuries. CP3 dealt with some injuries. They had to trade for Kevin Durant, gave away all their depth. throughout the season, and then KD got hurt, was only able to play like 4 or 5 games with them throughout the regular season before playing in the postseason with them. So there's a lot of stuff that really kind of screwed over the Phoenix team for this year. I'm gonna be interested to see what happens in the future with Suns, but this year there was a lot of chaos, a lot of injuries, a lot of randomness that happened with the Suns. So I'm not going to put too much of their failure on Monty this year. But he's a guy who went to Phoenix, a young team, and took them to the next level and helped them reach an NBA Finals where they lost to the best player in the NBA, and in my opinion, in Giannis Antetokounmpo, who put on an absolute absurd Finals against them. That's why they lost. So it wasn't like they went up there and lost to a team that wasn't as good as them. They lost to the best player in the world. So I think Monty has seen it all. He's a very experienced head coach. He was a head coach with the New Orleans Pelicans. He's been an assistant coach. Obviously, like we just mentioned, he was the head coach of the Suns. So he has experience in the NBA. He was a former player, so he can relate with guys. He's somewhat of a player's coach. But here's another reason why I'm a fan of Monty Williams. He is a fine offensive mind. I wouldn't go out there and say he's like the most, the biggest genius when it comes to offense ever. However, there are a few YouTube videos. If you guys want to go on YouTube, look them up. I've watched all of them. I've talked with some Suns people to try to get as much already in this past day, as much info about Monty Williams' offense in Phoenix. And if you just look up on YouTube, Phoenix Suns offensive system, offensive sets, offensive actions. There's plenty of Phoenix content creators that break down their exact sets, their actions, the names of them, all that stuff. And what intrigues me the most about Monty is that he just left a team in Phoenix where his entire offense, all their actions, all their sets, their scheme offensively. Watch the videos, talk with some Phoenix people. I'm telling you, when you watch this stuff and you listen to people break them down, all of it it's centered around maximizing their 2 guards. Devin Booker, Chris Paul. What's the comparison there? Oh, the Pistons' 2 most important young guys? Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. Who's the future of the Detroit Pistons? Their backcourt, their guards. They need somebody, and we've been talking about that a lot on the podcast ever since they decided to move on from Dwayne Casey. They need a guy who will maximize Cade and Jaden. Monty Williams is coming from a team where he quite literally did that with a guy who, at the time when he took over the job, people were saying, oh, Devin Booker can't win. You can't win with Devin Booker. He puts up empty stats, empty scoring, all this kind of stuff. And he went to Phoenix and maximized Devin Booker and Chris Paul together and got a team around them of players that fit. But again, I'm going to keep saying the word, but maximized those guys. Devin Booker, he operates in a lot of the same spaces that Cade likes to operate in, from the high post and the midi, pull-up middies from the high post, from the free throw line area, getting to the rim. Him and Cade operate in the same type of areas. Chris Paul also likes to operate in the same type of areas, getting to the high post, getting to the mid-range area. They operate the same type of way. So I really do think that Monty has the experience. He's already done it. And what he's already done with maximizing 2 guards is what the Pistons need. Is absolutely what the Pistons need. And I think he's kind of like a combination. Maybe not a combination. He has some of the Dwayne Casey, a great man, great leader of men. Guys will play hard for him. They'll want to play for him. That kind of thing that Dwayne Casey had. But also while having better offensive sets, better offensive, more modern offensive philosophy, and just a better, I would say he's just a better offensive mind than Dwayne Casey. And that's what they need. If you can get a combination of both those things, that's a really good coach. And I think Monty's a really good coach. He won Coach of the Year. And honestly, I don't think Phoenix really should have fired him. Now, the one thing against Monty is how he handled DeAndre Ayton. That was a fumble by him. That was a fumble by Ayton. That was a fumble by the Phoenix Suns organization. That was a fumble how they handled their relationship. And he carries a lot of that blame. So I will criticize that. But outside of that, man, Monty, I feel like he checks every box. He's not an old coach. He's 51 years old. Kevin Ollie is 50. Monty is the best coach on the market. And as soon as he was fired, you had multiple national media members already talking about, I wonder if Detroit's going to go ahead and try to turn their head coaching search around and go after Monty. I wonder if they should go after Monty. Monty should want to go to Detroit. Detroit should want Monty. Like, everyone sees that this is the perfect connection. Everyone sees that this is the right hire for the Pistons versus what they're looking at right now. Monty Williams should be the guy. He should be the guy. The coaching search, I've criticized it. The coaching search to me has been a little underwhelming. The potential hires, if they were to hire, a certain guy, I wouldn't be happy about it. I think it's been underwhelming. If this all were to happen and it was because they were waiting to see if Monty would get fired and they were to go on and get Monty Williams to take over the Pistons, I wouldn't care how the process went. As long as we got to that resolution, I'm perfectly fine. So they should be going after Monty Williams. I think he's the coach for this team. And look, he may have some other suitors. Milwaukee. Maybe if Philadelphia moves on from Doc. Toronto. There's going to be other guys. But he has connections with Troy. He knows how to work with two guards. He has experience with that. It seems like he's comfortable with that. He's going to be coming to a team that's trying to do the same type of thing with their two guards. He's going to have a top overall pick to boot with it. And he's going to have financial security and just overall security because the team is not trying to win immediately. There was an article published today at Bleacher Report that dives in and talks about how the Pistons, whoever they hire, they're not expecting immediate wins. They're not going to be taxed for not getting immediate wins like instantly. So they're going to have long-term security. So all that kind of stuff together, I think that makes it an intriguing spot for Monty. And the last thing I'll say, and we'll move on, these are Monty Williams' offensive and defensive rankings in Phoenix since he took over. First year, 12th offensively, 17th defensively. The next year, 5th offensively, 9th defensively. The next year, his third year, last year, 4th offensively, 3rd defensively. This year, 14th offensively, 7th defensively. And I got this information from Sean Corp, Detroit Bad Boys editor. He also went on to say, this is a really good point as well, the last time the Detroit Pistons had a team finish as high as Monty's worst offensive season in Phoenix was 2016. The last time they had a team finish as high as Monty's best was 2006, and for defense is 2020 and 2005, same type of way. So I think they go after Monty Williams. I think he's the right guy for the job, and they should be going all out for him, and I think he would be a great coach for the Pistons. So let me know what you guys think. Should they be going after Monty Williams? Is he the guy for the job? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Coming up, we're going to be getting into Brandon Miller, finally, his strengths, his weaknesses, and do I believe that he would be the right pick for the Detroit Pistons? Stay tuned for that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. So there's a $1 million daily Superflex promotion with PrizePicks. Every day of the NBA playoffs and finals, one PrizePicks user will win a chance at becoming a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern Time will be randomly selected each day. Whoever placed that entry will be given a 6-pick flex with the following payouts. 6 correct picks, $1 million. 5 correct picks, $80,000. 4 correct picks, $16,000. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at this link to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner. So you're probably asking, how do you play the game? How does it work? Well, you pick 2 to 6 players to see if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people, is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, and I mean it. Any sport you can think of, esports, college sports, professional sports, all of it. They have it all. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app. Go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I would really appreciate it. And also, before we get into Brandon Miller, I do just want to say thank you to all you guys who have reached out, who have commented on the videos, who have DM'd me and sent well wishes, prayers, and kind thoughts for me and my wife and what she's going through. So I appreciate all of that from you guys. You guys are the best. I really appreciate the community we've built here and the fact that you guys felt, the need to reach out and say kind things to us. I really appreciate that. So for real, I appreciate a lot of it. But anyways, let's move on past that and let's get into Brandon Miller. So I want to say this. I'm sorry that we had to make it like a 2-segment thing with Brandon Miller, but the lottery is coming up, and if the Pistons were to get one, then we wouldn't even be talking about Brandon Miller. So I couldn't push it back any longer. If I pushed it back again, we would be cutting it really close. So I had to put them into the same episode. So let's get right into it. So who is Brandon Miller? Well, Brandon Miller is a 6'9" wing forward, 3-4 / kind of same thing, 3 and 4, 6'9", 200 pounds. He's going to be 20 years old at the time of the draft. He went to Alabama, and instead of, I know in the last episode we did with the prospect, we did first segment weaknesses, or first segment strengths, and then second segment weaknesses. We're going to do it in the same segment here. So let's try to get through it quickly so we can have the last segment to talk about why shouldn't the Pistons draft him. So strengths, great shooter. He can hit multiple types of jumpers. He's not just like a catch and shoot jump shooter. He can shoot off the dribble some. He can shoot off ball screens. He can shoot on movement shots. Like, he's not just he's a very versatile shooter. That's the best way to put it. He's a versatile shooter. He has a fine handle for his size at 6'9". I wouldn't say he had a great one, but he has a fine one for his size. And he's probably one of his most underrated aspects of his game that I honestly that popped off the screen for me immediately, outside of his shooting, was how good of and how active of a rebounder he was for his size. He was very active. He was physical on the glass. He was consistently getting on the glass and getting boards. So I really like that at his size. He's not the strongest guy, but still, he was using his wingspan, his length, his size to get rebounds and was very active on that side. So I really loved seeing that. And he should be a passable defender at the next level. I don't want to say I have the best feeling on his defense right now. I don't. Right now, the best I can go with his defense is I think he should be at least passable at the next level. I don't know if he's going to be like a difference maker, a great defender, or even a good one, but he should be a passable one at the next level. If he isn't, that's going to be a concern, but I feel comfortable saying he'll at least be a passable one at the next level. He takes advantages of mismatches on smaller guards routinely. He's a guy that I think at the next level, if he has a guy who's smaller than him, who doesn't have enough strength to really check him, he'll be able to just rise up over him and shoot over them in the mid-range or in the three-point line. So he definitely will be able to take advantage of mismatches at the next level if guys just want to switch guards onto him. He has potential as a mid-range shooter. You didn't see it a lot at college because that just wasn't their system. If you go back to high school tape, now yes, you're going to, few years back, but if you're going to his high school tape, he did shoot a lot in the mid-range, and look, he was shooting over a lot of tiny guys in high school, okay, obviously, but I have been told from scouts that looking at high school tape can be good. It can give you like signs for what they could do at the next level. Maybe they just weren't given the opportunity to do what they were doing in high school at the college level because of system, etc. So I would say at the very least he has potential. I don't know if he actually will be a mid-range scorer off the dribble, but there is potential there that some people believe he'll be able to untap in the mid-range. He's an intriguing passer at his size as well, especially in transition. I think he should be at the very least a good connector in the half court. I don't think he's going to be like this fantastic playmaker, this really good playmaker off the bounce, but he makes the right read when it's there, when it's the easy read. He's able to make that, and especially in transition when he's like passing it ahead off a defensive rebound. There's been quite a few plays, and often actually when I was watching him, that instead of trying to get the offense or defensive rebound going and scoring for himself, he did do that sometimes, but he would get the defensive rebound and eyes immediately are up while he's dribbling. He would often try to find guys running the floor and try to find guys open in transition. So that's really good to see from him as well. And I think, again, like I said, I think he'll be a good connector in the half court offensively as well. If guys are open next to him, he needs that one extra swing. He should be able to make that pass. And also, he should be able to attack closeouts off the dribble routinely. We'll get into his weaknesses, but at the very least, he definitely should be able to attack closeouts off the dribble and maybe hit some pull-up middies, maybe take a sidestep to the pump fake sidestep 3 kind of stuff. And if he has an open lane, if you have a spaced out floor and you're running a spaced out team offense, if he attacks a closeout, he should be able to get to the rim and just finish. In short, he has potential to be a really good scorer. That's what people are drawn to him for. He has the potential to be a really nice scorer. Now, his weaknesses. He really, really struggles to finish at the rim. In college, he shot 39% at the rim in the half court. That's horrific. That's not good at all. 39% at the rim, and it shows up on tape even without the numbers. This is the first note I wrote when I was watching him. He's not a good finisher, and he lacks explosion on drives. And look, when he goes to the rim and he doesn't have... when he has a clear lane and he's able to just load up and fly, he is a fine athlete. But when there's traffic, when guys are making contact with him on his drives, when he jumps, it looks like he's being immediately pulled back down to the ground. He barely gets off the ground when there's contact with him. And it really that really comes to, what's the better word I'm looking for? It really showcases itself on drives and why he struggles to finish. Because he's not an explosive athlete. He can't really get off the ground in traffic. And that really forces him to take some tough shots around the rim that shouldn't be as tough. So I have really legit questions about his ability to be a finisher at the rim. And then to combine that with the lack of explosiveness, I also have serious concerns about him being able to create separation against defenders. If you're not a great athlete, or a good athlete, or struggle to explode on drives, or struggle to get off the ground on drives, you struggle finishing at the rim already, and then also you struggle at creating separation against defenders, all of that combined makes me really concerned about your ability to be a really great scorer. He has the potential, but all those things, I oftentimes saw him struggle to create separation for himself against guys. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle. His handle is fine. I don't think it's like bad or anything, but it's not like it's he can't really break a dude down. He doesn't have a great wiggle. And a lot of the shots he takes, he's just rising up over guys and hitting a lot of, contested shots. He was a fine shot maker in college. That's what people love about him. He was a good shot maker in college. But basically, at least my evaluation is at the next level, I feel like you're basically betting on him to be one of the best shooters in the NBA, and you're expecting him to be one of the best tough shot makers in the NBA if you're wanting him to reach his absolute ceiling, which I see some people trying to say like Brandon Ingram. I don't think he's as good of an athlete as Brandon Ingram. I don't think Brandon Ingram's like this fantastic athlete, but I think Brandon Ingram's a better athlete than he is. I think Brandon Ingram has more wiggle to him on his handle. I think Brandon Ingram can get to his spots better than him at this point. Now, obviously, Brandon Ingram's a little bit older, farther into his career. But my overall point is that you're basically, if you want him to reach his ceiling, where guys are saying he could be an all-star, to me, I don't see, you're basically saying that you think he's going to become one of the best shooters, and he's going to make a living off of hitting tough shots. Because I don't believe he's going to be able to create separation at the next level. I don't think he's going to be a great guy with the ball in his hands trying to create separation. He's going to be taking a lot of tough shots. And I really don't believe he'll be a good finisher at the next level. Now, if he's wide open at the rim, I don't think he's just going to blow bunnies, obviously. I think he can hit bunnies. But not to the point where you're like, oh, he's the second, third overall pick in the draft, and he can create these looks for himself, and he's going to be a great 3-level scorer. I struggle to see that with him. So those are my biggest concerns. Lack of separation against defenders, lack of explosion on drives, and how badly he struggled at the rim in college. Really, now look, the counter to this would be with spacing in the NBA. If you give him a spaced out floor, maybe some of those issues go away. I could buy that a little bit with the finishes at the rim. Maybe with the spaced out floor, he doesn't have to deal with as much of a rim protection at the rim. Maybe. But the separation against defenders, I really do question his explosiveness. I don't think that's going to change. I just don't think he's the greatest athlete. So those are my concerns with Brandon Miller, and that's why I'm not as high on him as everybody else is. Or not, I won't say everybody else. There's some people that are really high on him. I'm not as high on him, and it's because of these reasons right here. So when we come back, we'll talk about what do I project for him at the next level. Would he be the right pick for the Detroit Pistons, and what overall selection would he be the right pick at? We'll talk about all that when we come back, but first, you guys got to hear from some of our lovely sponsors. So, I want to thank you guys again. I almost forgot what I was going to say. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on our podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. To wrap up my thoughts on Brandon Miller. So, with everything I said, his strengths and weaknesses, what do I think about him at the next level? So, I think at the very least, this is him at the very least. I think he's going to be a role player, fine starter for the next 10 years at least. I think that's probably his floor. He has a high floor in my opinion because he should be a good shooter at the NBA level no matter what. I don't think that's something I question about him at all. He should be a great shooter, and this is the thing. I didn't mention this in the last segment, but I'm going to now. The thing with guys that are 6'9" is that, and this would be an argument that pushes it back against me being lower on him. I understand that. But the argument would be is that he wouldn't need to have such a good handle. He doesn't need to be a great self-creator with the ball in his hands, because him simply being a 6'9" at his size with his length and his ability to shoot, being that's so, I won't say that's so rare nowadays, but it's not just extremely common either. So that kind of stuff, having that base, will open up other things for him that he doesn't have to be particularly great at. It's just going to open up the other stuff, and it's going to be easier for him to do it. If that's the counter you throw at me, I can see that. I can see why someone would say that. 6'9", going against fours, guys having to close out hard on him, guys having to guard up hard on him, guys not being able to leave off of him because of how good of a shooter he is, him coming off a down screen, guys being so worried by his shooting, it opens up better driving lanes for him, etc. That kind of thing. If that's the argument you want to say for why you think he won't, he'll get away with some of the separation issues, why you think maybe the finishing around the rim will get better, maybe why the wiggle won't cause much issue for him, he won't need as much wiggle at the next level, like all this stuff, if that's your pushback against it, I understand that. I'm not going to make that argument, but I can understand why someone would. But overall, my point is, I could see him being a role player at the very least for the next 10 years because of him being 6'9" and being a really good shooter. Those are the type of guys you need in the NBA, and those guys will always have a role. So I usually give you guys a player comp. I don't want to do that here because I don't feel as comfortable with a player comp here. But I will say, when I'm talking about like his floor, like maybe not his floor. I don't want to say his floor because this would be disrespectful. But like the most, like I feel like reasonable, what's the best way to put this? If he weren't to hit his ceiling, but were to hit like a good place anyways. Like he doesn't hit his ceiling, but he's still a good player. Like that level, I think he's like a Cam Johnson type. A guy who is spacing the floor, who can hit movement threes. He'll be a fine defender. I think Cam Johnson probably will be a better defender than he is. But he'll probably have a little bit more to his game offensively than Cam Johnson too. So that's kind of like the trade-off there. Cam probably can't do as much with the ball in his hands that Brandon Miller will do. I don't think Brandon will be able to do a ton, but he'll probably do more than Cam, and then Cam will probably do more than him defensively. But you guys get my point. I think that will be overall, like, if he weren't to hit his ceiling, but he hits a good level, that's a guy who's like your fourth option on a good team, spaces the floor out, can hit movement threes, smart basketball player, will make the right pass, connector, that kind of thing. And a guy that everyone would love to have on their team, but simply not like the star or whatever. Just a guy you'd love to have on your team at all times. So I think that's like, again, that's not my player comp. I don't want to do a player comp, but that would be like, for me, I think that's like probably his most common outcome without hitting his ceiling. So why, now we move on to these questions. Why should the Pistons take him? Well, I think the Pistons would take him because he fits an immediate need, and he would immediately help the shooting issue on the wings. He would immediately boost the wing room, which we've talked about all year, being absolutely horrific, being absolutely terrible. He fills that need, and he would be able to play 3 to 4. His ability to rebound at his size, I think, once he gets a little stronger, he should be able to play the 4 position. He's not as strong right now, so he may struggle defending 4s right now. But I also don't know if he's like laterally quick enough to guard 3s. So like he does. That's something to think about too. I didn't put too much thought into that until I just thought of it just now. But anyways, he fits an immediate need. Will be able to play 3 or 4, space the floor out for the Pistons, and he definitely probably is the most seamless fit at the top of the draft next to Caden Ivey because of his strengths. His strengths should ease, and also Caden Ivey should make life really easy on him in his first year and maybe throughout his career if he were to be drafted by the Pistons, because they will do a lot of the creating for him and he won't have to do as much creating. He'll be operating off the advantages that Caden Ivey make for him. So that's why the team should take him. Why shouldn't the Pistons take him? Well, the reason why you wouldn't take him is because you don't think his ceiling is very high. You question whether he'll be able to be anything more than a fine, good starter in the NBA. And when you're selecting it like 2, 3, 4, you're probably looking for more than just, a fine starter in the NBA, a role player type of guy. That would be why you wouldn't take him. Or I guess the better way to say it, there's other guys I feel like that have more potential than he is, who are simply better prospects than he is. But I don't think there's any actual if you say, do you want Brandon Miller on your team? The answer is yes. Brandon Miller fits. So I don't think there's actual basketball reasons that are oh, okay, he's bad or he can't do this, so you wouldn't want him. I think the overall thing with Brandon Miller, why I wouldn't take him if I was the Pistons, is if I'm at 2, 3, and maybe 4, maybe even 4 for me. I know some guys are really high on Brandon Miller. I know some people are really low on him. But I think at 3, the only reason why you wouldn't take him is because Amon Thompson's sitting right there. That's the only reason to me. Basketball reasons, he fits. He's going to be a fine player at the next level. I'm not concerned about him being a bust. He's going to be a good player at the next level no matter what. And if he does become like a great shot maker, if he does become really great at hitting tough shots and consistently can shoot over guys in the mid-range and really does add that mid-range to him, that probably should open up a little bit more for him around the rim, and maybe that can help his rim frequency and rim finishing get better. And then now you have like your 3-level score, and then he really can hit his ceiling of like a Brandon Ingram type player, I guess. Like that maybe that does happen, and then you hit on it, and he is worth that pick. But I have concerns about that being the case, so that's why I wouldn't take him at 3. But if the Pistons were to take him at like 4 or 5, I think that would be like fine. I just think there's other guys in this draft that have more potential than him. That's it. That's basically it with Brandon Miller. But I think he's going to be a good player at the next level nonetheless. So those are my overall thoughts on Brandon Miller. Let me know what you guys think and what you guys take away from what I've said in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Locked On Pistons, obviously. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of these playoffs. And again, until next time, peace out.